Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to be doing some more mock drafting here as we make our way through the 2021 offseason. I've got a 12-team full PPR mock draft. I'll be picking from the third overall spot. That seems to be one of the most coveted draft positions this year, or at least one of the spots with the hardest decisions to make as to which of those top-tier running backs are going to be available for me to pick and who I'll ultimately end up taking off the board. So we're diving through the scenario again, showing you how to build this team. We've got some updates on injuries with J.K. Dobbins. Fully torn ACL, bad news, not what you wanted to hear. There was some optimism earlier on in yesterday evening and in the afternoon today that I'm recording this video that he would maybe escape with some sort of an MCL or PCL injury. That's not the case. It's Gus Bus time here. His ADP is skyrocketing, and he is vaulting up the draft boards. Meanwhile, now obviously JK is plummeting down that list. So we'll get into that, break that situation down more, talk about when's an appropriate time to start drafting Gus Edwards and move forward with that situation. Without further ado, if you're new around here, you guys, drop down, give today's video a like, subscribe. If you still need help with your 2021 fantasy leagues, check out the SFS Draft Guide collection for this fantasy season. The link to that is in the description of today's video and every other episode I post here. In addition to the community Discord, which is who we'll be drafting with today, members of our SFS community here that we have created on the channel. Those members, they join that up. We have discussions on there, create our own leagues, do mock drafts together, and get better at fantasy as a group. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, drop down and check that out as well. But let's hit that intro and get straight into the draft. All right, here we go. So we're kicking things off here. CMC, the obvious number one pick there off the board. Here we go. Dalvin Cook goes at the 1-2. Full PPR league again. I've got the choice between Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. My draft guide rankings would actually reflect Ezekiel Elliott up here a bit higher than he is currently shown. But being that's full PPR, again, going back to those draft guide rankings, I just posted my top 24 running backs and wide receivers a couple days ago each. Those videos show Alvin Kamara, and obviously that running backs video is already slightly outdated because that J.K. Dobbins injury happened. I posted that the morning that he got hurt later on in that preseason game in the evening. But Alvin Kamara is my top player on the board here. We'll make this pick, get things moving. We've got a lot of players in today's mock, and we want to keep things rolling. I'll have plenty of time to break down that choice before my next pick here. This is just a player who has maybe the best PPR skill set outside of Christian McCaffrey, obviously being the fact that CMC could be a legitimate 1,000-yard rusher and receiver at the same time. Kamara is probably the next best threat to do so in today's game. I think that Alvin will see an increase in rushing attempts that he gets this year from the Saints, for the sole purpose and reason that Drew Brees is no longer in town, and they're going to be looking for their offense to come in a little bit of a different facet than it has come in the past. I'm actually going to reduce this draft clock. I've got it at 2 minutes, but it's going to be quite lengthy. Am I able to get in the draft settings here? All right, everybody's online, at least for now, so until it starts to become an issue, then I will speed up that clock, because I don't know if I can actually do that without pausing the board. And I don't want to interrupt Jokester's pick there. We got started a little bit late. I had to say goodbye to some family that was at the house here. I'm actually moving, so I'll have a new studio, new setup here within the next week. So just want to take care of that. So I apologize to those who were in the lobby waiting for me to do that. But that's besides the point. Those of you who are watching this offline the day after have no idea what I'm talking about right now. Alvin Kamara, back to that situation. I actually listened to an interview. They asked him, they said, do you pronounce your name Kamara or Kamara? And he said his mom pronounces it Alvin Kamara, and he pronounces it himself Kamara. And he said he doesn't really care how you say it, just however it rolls off your tongue. So I say it both ways. Another random side note, but something I figure I'd touch on here. Alvin has a very good offensive line, and although it concerns me that there might be some regression in the receiving department from him in terms of his fantasy value, I do have very good faith in what that line can provide to him. That's one of the units that took the least amount of hit with cuts, with injuries, with losing players because of that cap hole in the COVID cap withdrawal that we saw this offseason. They lost a lot of players on defense. That's not really what their strong suit was, their defensive front, their defensive line. They had a lot of quality veteran linebackers. They had to lose some big names, some big pieces. They were able to bring some guys back after releasing them, like Quan Alexander, for example, I believe is now back on a smaller team-friendly deal. But it was a tough year for the Saints this offseason in terms of cramming that roster, and it's definitely a lesser group than it was a season ago. But I do think that Kamara with that offensive line can still be a steady and efficient rusher. His numbers will decline marginally without maybe having such an elite receiving game. He will still be an elite receiver, and he could, like I said, theoretically be a 1,000-yard receiving back. He's had 81 receptions or more 3 years in a row, I believe it was. He had the exact same reception count 3 straight years. It's just going to come down to, can he stay healthy? Can he continue to... He will see regression in the touchdown department from last season. I'm almost sure of that. But can he at least maintain an elite level of production in that category to limit the drawback that he has from that past season? Because both him and Derrick Henry had almost too good to be true fantasy seasons. Come on, Eric, man. Make your pick, bro. Eric from the channel here. This is why I'm saying that. Obviously, I wouldn't say that about one of the subscribers, but he's not even on the Sleeper app right now, so I'm just kind of filling time here before my next draft pick. Overall, I just feel very, very good and solid about the Alvin Kamara situation. He might have peaked and seen his best days behind him, but moving forward, the days that he has ahead of him still will be very productive, and I expect them to net us very nice numbers. So Kamara will be at bare minimum. I think his floor is a top 5 running back, assuming he's in good health. And potentially he could finish in that top 3 where I picked him at if he's able to still capitalize and maximize some of that ceiling value. So if Jacob here at the 111 doesn't have that little green dot next to his name, which he doesn't, I'll pause the draft here and we're going to cut that down to 60 seconds just to keep things rolling here. Boom, resume. All right, we're good now. So worst case scenario, he'll go on auto draft if he doesn't make this pick in the next 60 seconds. DWN at the 112 there is on, and then after that, the board should start moving a bit quicker here. Obviously, though, if you want to have the draft clock on set for longer, you do that in the early parts of the draft so that players aren't rushed for the most crucial picks of the draft. So there's a lot of picks to go off the board here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 picks to be exact in between my next selection and now. So doing some quick math here, that would tell us Calvin Ridley is the expected player to be available for us at that spot. I don't know if Pat Mahomes will go in between now and then, though. I think we might see some reaching down into some of these other position groups. It might be a bit of a thin spot. I think we're looking at some players who, a lot of running backs are going to go off here, as they already have. We've seen 10 straight backs go off the board. Definitely a demand. So that's what we'll talk about here. J.K. Dobbins. Has he ever increased the positional scarcity that we see at the running back group? He was my running back 13 in that video that just came out the other day, ranking those running backs 1 through 24. We've already lost 2 top 15 backs this fantasy season. Cam Akers I had as an RB1 at the time of his Achilles injury. Now the ACL for J.K. Dobbins, that's 2 very talented, very explosive second-year runners. Not going to be on the field this year. A big bummer. And that just makes it all the more important that we capitalize on that position early, because you're going to be left high and dry very, very quickly. And if you don't capitalize on that group, really nice running back pairings with Aaron Jones and Najee Harris, and then Austin Eckler and Antonio Gibson by X Tidal Wave and ENFC, I guess, if that's how you say that. I just want to give a quick shout out to them. Those are two nice stacks there. They're doing this thing right, because now I'm going to pretty much be all dried up out of running back value on the board when the picks come back to me. I'm not a Deandre Swift guy. Oh, man, why is Clyde Edwards-Helaire questionable? Okay, preseason week 2, sprained ankle. That's not the best thing to hear. That appears to be a relatively older news than I expected that to be, but considering I don't really like Clyde Edwards-Helaire to begin with, not something that was heavily on my radar. You see Eric goes with the pick there, so at this point I might be hoping for Darren Waller might be my best option on the table. just based off of my rankings at this spot, I would take DeAndre Hopkins if he was still here, but I would strongly consider Darren Waller over A.J. Brown or Justin Jefferson, although it would be a tight choice. Not really loving the idea of going with the Joe Mixon here. I think I can, let's see, I could hope that a David Montgomery or a Chris Carson might be available for me in the early third round. I do really like Gus Edwards, but it's still a bit early for him. We want to talk about him today as well. But it just kind of shows you the strain now on the running back position is even greater with one very quality name off the board and a player that I was very fond of this season. I loved the upside. I had just invested into 2 shares of him in money leagues, so I have something riding on the line for J.K. Dobbins. Thankfully, in one of the 2, I was able to draft Gus Edwards. In that second situation, though, I was fortunate enough to have drafted James Robinson and get bailed out by that situation as well. So I kind of gained an fringe RB1 on that, but I also lost one at the same time. The decision now. So do I want to draft? I think my top 2 names here will be Justin Jefferson, who is my highest ranked wide receiver left on the board, and Darren Waller. I could go Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is a full PPR play if you're going to make that decision. But with the fact that he has a sprained ankle, considering the fact that I'm just not a big fan of his situation and his upside to begin with, if you're going to take him in a scoring format, you better do full PPR. But nonetheless here, I'm leaning strongly towards Darren Waller and giving myself a positional advantage elsewhere instead of reaching for a wide receiver, because even if my top couple guys aren't there, there's a longer list of names I would be comfortable with at the 3-3 had I miss out on them, and I'm not going to recoup a Darren Waller type player later on. So we'll make that choice there. A bit earlier than I would tend to draft Darren Waller. It is a late second round pick, so I think it's still worthwhile. But you know what? I might have the opportunity to pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who, although I don't love him as a player, well, I actually do have him ranked below David Montgomery, though. Keenan Allen's an interesting choice here in full PPR leagues. Maybe he doesn't have the highest ceiling, but he's got a dang safe floor. I really like Terry McLaurin's upside. Allen Robinson has a really nice floor as well. So just kind of thinking through things here. The wide receiver position is by far the deepest in fantasy football, and I fear greatly if I were to pass on a running back right now, what would I be left with in the late 4th or early 5th round? I would be shocked if a Gus Edwards was even there for me still. And despite the fact that this is a full PPR league, I don't want to be too thin at running back. This has been more and more of an issue the more running backs drop down. Hopefully we don't see anyone else get hurt before the start of the regular season. But, this has been a real thing. Even when every running back was healthy and on the table, we were missing a lot of guys. So I'm going to go David Montgomery here as my pick. The reasoning for going him over Josh Jacobs, Deandre Swift, Chris Carson was actually my next closest ranked player. Deandre Swift's health, I just don't trust at all. I love his skill set, what he could be as a player, but he has too many nicky-knack injuries that just turn into missing games here and there that I don't feel like I can rely on him to be a dependable asset. And I feel like if you draft DeAndre Swift, you almost have to draft Jamal Williams or put a handcuff in play, because you're almost for sure going to be forced to use them for a healthy chunk of games. And that's not a situation I want to be backed into a corner with. Josh Jacobs does not catch very many passes. I don't love the upside in that situation. And the floor, I think, drops a little bit as well because the touchdown production has somewhat of a threat entering the fold with Kenyon Drake this year. Miles Sanders has excellent upside, but his floor is very shaky. It's going to be very dependent on the health of the Eagles roster. Miles Sanders himself has his own hamstring and lower body injuries that he deals with here and there. Maybe not quite as extremely as DeAndre Swift, but something that flared up a bunch last season. And the fact that the Eagles might just be a bad team. That's another thing with the Lions. Although DeAndre Swift has a very complete skill set in game as a pass catcher, he still is prone to having that run game being basically removed from the game when the Lions are trailing by multiple scores late in the ball game. They're going to have to pass. Maybe that means check down opportunities and a lot of plays to be made in space with soft coverage underneath. But it's all a matter of preference. Montgomery's the safer pick for me here, of all the running backs, maybe aside from Chris Carson, who, again, I love Chris Carson this season, but he has more injury concern than a David Montgomery does. Just look at his track record here the last couple of seasons. He's missed time with things as well. Not to say that injuries are a reason to completely fade a player off your board or not draft them, but it's a contributing factor into my draft choice, and being that the trend here in the preseason and early in the year has been we are losing a lot more running backs than expected, it makes you a little bit more prone to going with the secure picks here. I think Montgomery's got the best penciled in workload of any of the guys left on the board here. He has the potential to be used as a receiving threat. I like his goal line involvement with that Bears offense. And although I have my question marks about the Chicago offensive line, it's no perfect fantasy situation, but it's something I feel semi-comfortable with, and I would not be afraid to draft here. So, excuse me. I've got a bit of a raspy throat right now. Need some water or something. So heading into, all right, James Robinson goes in the early 4th round there. That's an interesting thing to keep note of. We'll see when Gus Edwards goes. I'd be interested to see exactly how long it takes for him to go off the board. I'm currently recording this episode almost immediately following the news of J.K. Dobbins' official ACL tear. So his ADP has rocketed up overnight, but it hasn't quite hit the peaks of where I think it can be going at. Yeah, you see, he's got a 3% roster and a 1% start rate. He will definitely be the lead guy for the Ravens this year, though. I actually was able to pick up Gus Bus Edwards in his rookie season as an undrafted player out of Rutgers for the Ravens back in 2018, and Gus was a league winner for me. I had him and C.J. Anderson off the waiver wire on the stretch of the fantasy playoffs, and I paired them with Melvin Gordon in his hot spree that year. It was fantastic. Who was the starting running back for the Ravens that year? It wasn't Mark Ingram yet, I don't think, but nonetheless, Gus came in, was scoring touchdowns, was getting decent yardage on a game basis, and having the volume that you were looking for. So it was an awesome situation. He's shown me in the past he can get the job done. He is not explosive. He has one of the slowest 40-yard dashes of any. There goes Gus Edwards at the 4.6 to Eric. That is a very Eric-esque pick. He's got 2 really nice running backs. I would say Jonathan Taylor doesn't have a perfect floor just because of Carson Wentz, but I think that they're very unflashy running backs per se. They both get the job done very well. But at the end of the day, I think Gus Edwards, we can expect to be right around 20 touches per game in this offense. He was getting touchdowns last year, even with JK in the offense, even with some Mark Ingram involvement early on last year. It's not a terrible situation to be in here. If Darrell Henderson falls to me, I might pull the trigger here in the late 4th round. His ADP has slipped a little bit in the aftermath of that Sony Michel trade, which is something interesting to talk about too. You know, I've had some interesting discussions about Sony Michel off air, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that Sony's not going to be the guy for this offense. I think Darrell Henderson will be entitled to that workload until he loses that chance, gets hurt, or has reason for Sean McVay to bench him. But I think that he can be a short yardage, late down in distance, try and come in and pick up a 3rd and short, a goal line spot. He's going to have a solid role, and if he ends up getting elevated in the offense, I think it could be something that is a little bit intimidating for Darrell Henderson owners. But until that happens, I think we're fine. He is dealing with still expected to have a big role. He is dealing with a bit of a hand issue right now, so he's not having contact at the moment because he's dinged up and they're just trying to keep him fresh. But Henderson might just be the pick here. I don't really love the idea of going. I got 7 seconds. I got to make a choice pretty speedy here. Go Darrell Henderson. Already got my tight end locked up in Darren Waller. Don't need Kyle Pitts. 12-team leagues, I'd rather just fade the quarterback spot since I did go tight end early, and I'll address that position later. 2 really good choices for me on the board for my first wide receiver. I love Tyler Lockett, and I love Brandon Ayuk. I will take Tyler Lockett this time around, though, and try and play for some elite upside with having some, I would consider Montgomery and Henderson more floor plays. They do have nice ceilings. They have nice offensive involvement situations. Just being in the fact that Darrell Henderson plays for the Rams, They're going to be a quality football team. They have very good schematic coaching. They should be a very sound group. That makes me comfortable with Darrell Henderson, but he's not going to blow the brakes off a defense and win you your fantasy week by himself like Cam Akers had the potential to do prior to his own injury. So same situation, same team, but the different player with the different skills changes things up a little bit. Darrell Henderson does have a complete skill set. He can be a pass-catching back. He can do the early down and distance work and the short yardage work, but they did bring in another guy for a reason. They want to keep him healthy, keep him fresh. I think Henderson will be a tick below 20 touches per game. I think 16 to 18 would be really nice for us to see from him. And again, a veteran offensive line, smart play calling and coaching, I think will get him efficient numbers that we're looking for. But he's not going to be breaking off long runs and having explosive plays left and right. That's just not his game. That's not who he is as a player. I do feel very, very comfortable with my top 3 running back lineup, though, and the fact that I do have a positional advantage at tight end makes me feel great about how we started things off today. We're going to be building upside here in the later rounds of this draft through the wide receiver position. I'm probably looking at rounds 8 through 10 for a quarterback right now. Probably not going to invest into another tight end with a pick here. But the floor of my roster has been established. I feel comfortable moving in. The foundation, the core, should be enough to keep this team afloat. Now it's about making the picks that will give me the extra leg I need to win those matchups every week and to overcome when an opponent has players that are booming and putting up big-time numbers. So that's an early pick of Trey Sermon there. His ADP's rising up a little bit here as we approach the season into the 6th round before a Javonte Williams even. Chase Edmonds, a very interesting full PPR play here. Michael Carter still on the board, but his ADP is actually falling as of late after he was not so spectacular in the last game of the preseason, and he was splitting touches, which I don't think is something too much to read into because I think we all expected somewhat of a committee-style system there in New York to begin with, so I don't know why that's coming as a shock that he's not being used as a 3-down workhorse player. But I do think what bodes very well for Michael Carter this year is that pass-catching ability he has, especially in these full PPR leagues. He's still going to be the guy out there on 3rd and 10 who is going to catch the dump-off screen pass, the check down from Zach Wilson if he chooses to make those plays. It'll be interesting to see, can Zach Wilson protect the football enough and make the right choice on 3rd down? I talk about this a lot with Pat Mahomes and Justin Herbert. When they're running around and getting outside the tackle box, they're not looking to always check it down to Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Austin Eckler because that's not their game. They know their arm talent can get the ball to the elite playmakers they have out in space. Keenan Allen for the Chargers, and then you've got Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce for the Chiefs. The Jets are a little different. Corey Davis is a nice piece. You've got Jamison Crowder and the rookie out of Ole Miss, Elijah Moore. You've got nice pieces, but I wouldn't say they're elite players that give you the chance to come down with that ball as much as those other 3 guys I mentioned from the other teams do. So will Zach Wilson show us that he has the maturity and the poise to check that ball down to Michael Carter and let him try and get the job done after the catch? Or is he going to force it and throw a bunch of interceptions and try and stretch the ball downfield to guys who maybe aren't capable quite yet of making those plays? So speak of the devil, Michael Carter goes off the table there. Let's check out who's available for us here. This is an interesting round for me. The top 2 wide receivers that I would like to pick here are both actively injured. Kenny Galladay is dealing with a hamstring injury. Michael Thomas, we know the story there. He's recovering from that ankle. It would give me a really, really quality wide receiver 1 once he returns from injury. And I feel very, very good about that situation now, knowing that Jameis Winston will be the starter moving forward into the year. But do I think, or do I know rather, that I would be able to fill out this position group and hold them over for the month of the season where I'm waiting for that return to the field? Because if you told me I got Tyler Lockett and Michael Thomas at full strength, I would love this group. Kenny Galladay is far too risky for me. I do have him ranked higher in my rankings right now, but the Giants are not a situation I want to buy into too much at this moment in time. Michael Thomas is just outside my top 24 wide receivers. Kenny Galladay is right on the back end of things. This is gonna be an interesting pick here. So I'm gonna jump up the board just a hair and make that draft choice. I was considering Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett as a stack. Russ did go at the 6-12 there. So I'm gonna do the next best thing here. I need to invest into another wide receiver. Now the choice is mine. Do I want? There's a small chance I could get Cortland Sutton coming back to me in the late 8th round. He looked fantastic the other night. His routes are pretty good. He does have a knee brace on. But I think I'm going to take a shot here on Devontae Smith. Rookie wide receivers do have a lot of upside themselves. He's a very polished route runner, has the best chance, I would say, of any of these rookies to step in as the number 1 in his offense. Jamar Chase right now, as much as I think he is more of an alpha than Devontae Smith is in terms of his stature, his playmaking ability, and all that stuff, he's struggling. The drops are for real. T. Higgins is a dog. We already know that. He's going to have to at least make a run at T, and it's not going to just be handed to him, whereas I think Jalen Reagor's a nice piece, but isn't so much of a competition to outpace a Devontae Smith for targets, if you understand what I'm saying there. Reagor will have his usage and his involvement, but he's playing in the slot this year. Devontae Smith is going to be the man lined up out wide, doing the dirty work all over the field for Jalen Hurts in this offense. Or maybe Gardner Minshew if the Eagles get caught up in their quarterback carousel again this year. That was a head-scratching pick for me. I don't understand what they have to gain from that. If you don't think, excuse me, that Jalen Hurts is your franchise quarterback, why would you go out and trade for another guy who you probably don't see as a franchise quarterback? I mean, to me, Gardner Minshew kind of screams Philly. He's kind of got that edgy personality, that toughness to him, that enigma type personality that just kind of embodies the craze of the Philadelphia area and what that team is all about. But I mean, I could see the Eagle fans getting really behind him and having Minshew Mania take over Lincoln Financial Field. But it just seems like a weird trade to me. You've got Joe Flacco. I mean, what happens to Joe Flacco now? Now, poor Joe Flacco. Now that, because we're looking at wide receivers. He's still on the Eagles. Yeah, could he still be the number 2 quarterback? That's very interesting. I mean, he's old as dirt. We already know what Joe Flacco is. They probably never wanted to put him out there to begin with because he has no athletic ability whatsoever at this point, but he never really did. Have you ever watched Joe Flacco try and slide? It might be one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He will literally slide down and then accidentally fold backwards underneath himself and pop back up. It's a nightmare to watch Joe Flacco try and slide. Just please look it up if you haven't seen it before. What were we talking about? So we're trying to build out this wide receiver room. We get off track here on these videos sometimes, especially when we're drafting with subs and we get a little distracted. Devontae Smith will have to play that wide receiver 2 role while we're waiting for Michael Thomas to come back and hopefully become an inevitable starter for this team. I would feel awesome about the starting lineup if you give me MT and Tyler Lockett together on the field at the same time. That would be awesome. Perfect. And then you can look at flexing Devontae Smith, David Montgomery, Darrell Henderson, making some choices here. Let's peek at that wide receiver room one more time. Zach Moss is a very interesting name at running back to add some depth as a number 4. He's got pass-catching upside. I think he'll see an increase in touchdown production this year as well. I like his skill set and his stature that he can have. So Cortland Sutton actually ends up going here. We're not going to have him fall down to us, which is rather unfortunate. I'd be happy to see Brandon Cooks fall my way. It's a stretch. I don't think he'll be there, but you can hope. Jalen Waddle's got nice upside, but he's the top wideout on the board. That might not happen. There are still names here. Darnell Mooney, Curtis Samuel's got nice upside as well. That's the name of the game right now. Marvin Jones. I could even look at taking a quarterback before I dabble too much more into this receiver room, just because there's so many names stretching down literally the entire way down the board. Like Marquez Callaway and Jacoby Myers are flex-worthy players in matchups this season, depending on who they're playing. And maybe Marquez Callaway, is the answer to the Michael Thomas injury before that, before Michael Thomas can get back on the field. Maybe if I draft Marquez Callaway, he can act as the number 1 for that offense in the meantime while I'm waiting for my eventual starting plan to play out here. So there's so many wide receiver options. When you're starting 3 receivers on every NFL team, you've got 96 total starters in the league. At running back, you've got 32. So you're working with a third of the crop. It's a lot more important to hit that position. Make sure you get that stuff done right early on. Right now, I would say my top priority is making a draft pick of Zach Moss or a quarterback here. I mean, Brandon Cooks is on the board, which looks very, very enticing here. He might be just too good to pass on. But I don't know if I can guarantee one player or the other will be there, depending on who I don't pick. So based off ADP, Brandon Cooks is the higher of the 2 pieces. Let's take a look at Team 1 and Team 2. 2 running backs is all Team 1 has claim to fame for. They are both CPU teams, so there's actually a shot here since Zach Moss's ADP is a little bit lower. Now, if I did take Brandon Cooks and Zach Moss, I would be looking at lesser quarterback play. So I'm going to miss out on my Trevor Lawrences, my Ryan Tannehills, Joe Burrows, Jalen Hurts. But I could come back and take a safe floor pick in Kirk Cousins, pair him with a high upside play in Jameis Winston or Ryan Fitzpatrick, and maybe make things work there. So I'm going to work on filling out the rest of this roster and dealing with quarterbacks later, because whereas running back might be one of the thinnest positions in fantasy football, and receivers might be a bit deeper, quarterbacks are also that deeper group. You're only starting 12 of them in these 12-team leagues. Of the 32, there's 20 quarterbacks every week that are not in a starting fantasy lineup. That gives you too much opportunity to not gain an advantage at that spot. You have to really find your niches and attack value at the quarterback position on boards, because the difference in the drop-off is a lot less significant between those 12 starters than it might be when you're starting multiple running backs in a fantasy lineup. So, a quick little insight there. Again, if you're looking for help with your fantasy football leagues this season, the SFS Draft Guide collection for the season is linked in the description of today's video or any other episode here on the channel. It's one of the best, if not the best, fantasy value on the market this year. For just $10, you can get the redraft kit. You can get the top 250 player profiles and analysis. We've got written out situations and strategies, forecasts for this fantasy season, draft day target ranges. Some of them need to be updated because we've got injuries and whatnot, but we've also got ceiling and floor analysis for each player, a risk radar indicating how safe or risky we think a draft pick is this season. All you got to do is jump over there, click on their name in the ranking sheet, and it'll redirect you to their individual page with a bunch of information about them. 60 must-own players at the moment. That actually might go up in a couple of days here when I update that list. I basically break down the board, rounds 1 through 20 of 12-team leagues, and I taper it off into tiers based off of the 12 picks in that ADP range. And I say, all right, of these next 12 players, these are the guys you have to walk away with at least one of them in each round. And if you do that, you should set yourself up for great success this fantasy season and get yourself a really quality and strong group of players put together. What else we got in there? Sleeper and bust master lists, where it's the same type deal. It'll just pop up buttons for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And for either sleepers or busts, you click on that position and it sends you over to a sheet that's got all the names on it that I think are must-fade players, busts. On the other hand, sleepers or potential boom prospects for this year. Some guys with great upside that are being a little bit undervalued. So there's a ton of info in there. And additionally, we'll be adding and upgrading some of these services here throughout the season and eventually transitioning how we do things a bit here. But for now, it's just a one-time payment. And you guys will be set and on your way for this year. Again, go check out that Discord as well. That community Discord is linked in the description of today's video. And that'll get you access to some more individual and personalized content from us here at the channel, as well as the opportunity to mock draft with us before draft season winds up for the year. We'll be doing a bunch more of these. I'm assuming probably at least 4 or 5 more episodes before September 9th and draft season is over. We'll make sure we hit that home hard, do multiple scoring formats, league sizes, all that good stuff. I'll probably toss in another standard draft, do some more 10 and 12 team work. Maybe I'll do another 8-man league as well. There's all kinds of goodies in here. So stick around the channel. We'd love to have you this season. I'm happy to help you with anything you'd like. I want to be the most interactive fantasy football channel out there. So please, if you have a question, drop it down below. If you got a comment, concern, want trade advice, whatever it might be, I'm here for you guys. Put it in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I check my inboxes on a regular basis throughout the day, and whenever I see a little bell with a number on it that tells me I've got something to respond to, and I get right to that. So I always try to, get very personal with you guys and help you make the best choices for your teams. All right. We are still quarterbackless. Going into the 10th round, that's all right. I said rounds 8 through 10 is kind of my target range for the quarterback position. It looks like somehow we're still clinging on to 3 top 14 quarterbacks on the board right now. For me, based off of my draft guide rankings, that being Trevor Lawrence, Ryan Tannehill, Joe Burrow. My next best would actually be Kirk Cousins all the way down here, who is my quarterback 15 for this season. I would love to take advantage of him. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in fantasy this season. And if you want to fade that position group, you can absolutely load up at other spots and let the value fall down there while you just let your league mates sit and pick their second or even sometimes third quarterbacks that won't even start for them because you can only start one in traditional fantasy leagues. So these teams out here, granted, they are auto picking at this point. They picked for about half the draft, and now they're on the auto pick. Ryan Tannehill's not going to start very many games for you over Aaron Rodgers. It actually looks like Trevor Lawrence is this team's QB1, so that's very, very acceptable there. But let's look at other situations. Jalen Hurts at the 9-8 here. He's not going to be playing too many games over Pat Mahomes in your lineups. That's it right now for teams with multiple quarterbacks on the roster, but you get the point, or at least what I'm trying to say here. I feel good riding with those 4 running backs that I went ahead and drafted right now. Zach Moss as an RB4 behind Darrell Henderson gives me some stability there, I think, and I feel pretty confident about how that can look for my team here. Elijah Moore and Marvin Jones would be great picks at this spot if Joe Burrow's off the board. I would like Joe. I think he's got nice upside. I'm a bit worried about these confidence issues and red flags that are being brought up in practice, obviously, because you want your quarterback to keep his eyes up in the pocket and be looking downfield to make plays. Hopefully he's not too shaky back there. Worried about re-injury, getting smoked, because that Cincinnati line is still... I was advocating, please pick Penei Sewell. Do right by your quarterback. He might want his buddy Jamar Chase, but pick the left tackle that's going to protect him. The Bengals did the Bengals move. What did they do? They went out and drafted a position they were already dang good at. Auden Tate is not a terrible third wide receiver. He's not very flashy. He's a big boy, goes up, makes contested catches. But T. Higgins, I think, is a 1 in this league. He looked very, very solid last year. Tyler Boyd might just be the most disrespected wide receiver in the NFL. The poor dude literally doesn't even make graphics posted by the NFL for, like, watch out for the Bengals this year. Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. They just forget about him. Like, they don't even acknowledge that Tyler Boyd is even there. And he is a very competent, very quality receiver, has multiple 1,000-yard seasons on his track record. Honestly, I feel bad for the kid because he is a talented player. He's a stud. And they have a luxury at that spot, like I said, and they go out there and pick a third receiver. And at the time, they did let John Ross walk in free agency, but at the time, they had Auden Tate too. And just the season prior, they had a former first-round pick in John Ross that they invested into at that spot. So, goofy stuff for the Bengals. With that being said, I will take Joe Burrow, the captain, the captain of that loaded wide receiver room there. Joe Mixon can catch some balls at the backfield too. Zach Taylor wants to run an air raid system. They're going to put up a lot of points. And actually, both the receivers I wanted are both available. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I've got Elijah Moore and Marvin Jones ranked dead next to each other in the draft guide this season. Marvin Jones is ahead by 1 spot right now, although every mock or so, I'll go back and forth and pick one or the other just to try and diversify my investments. But man, I love the potential of Marvin Jones in this high-volume passing offense of the Jacksonville Jaguars. They don't want to pass the ball as much as I think they will have to this season because they will be such a bad team. They're going to be trailing late, losing dang near all their games. Trevor Lawrence, as talented as he is, can't make the difference by himself. You're a product of your situation at times in the NFL. He might have a generational arm talent, the ability to do a lot of different things. But think of this almost as an Andrew Luck-esque situation with the Colts. I think he's going to just get smoked in the backfield, take a lot of sacks, a lot of hits, get banged up. We might even see him go down, miss games. I hope not, because Gardner Minshew's gone now, so you've got no prayer when that happens. But I think that he will connect with the more veteran presence in the room, that being Marvin Jones. I'm confident DJ Chark can have a nice showing, have nice upside this season. But at the end of the day, I trust the vet who's gotten it done with multiple organizations already on his track record. Then I do the player who's got a broken thumb right now. He's like a Pro Bowler, but 2 years ago, had a down season last year, although be it with very bad quarterback play because Jake Luton was starting games, although he almost freaking beat my Packers last year. But I think Jones is just an overall safe pick here. What is he, our wide receiver 4 or 5? Wide receiver 5 for this team. So theoretically, he might not even be starting games or ever see the flex position in this lineup for this team once Michael Thomas returns to the field. But he's definitely a quality starter for, again, a team that's going to be passing the ball at a high clip, trying to stay in games. I mean, Trevor Lawrence might have multiple 50 passing attempt performances this year. And when you talk about the knock of losing Travis Etienne, who was going to be used as a gadget player, but he would have had some involvement in the run game as well, that might take a little bit of the edge and the sting off of how dangerous they are for one-touch, off-the-edge scoring plays in the run game and make them even more reliant on that pass game. Because James Robinson can give you steady clips here and there and just keep moving forward, but he's still not a elite burst player that just gets out in space and takes off running. So still not a perfect situation for that either. Hoping I can get Russell Gage here in the 12th round. It's a pick I would feel great about. Let's check on Kirk Cousins. Boom. Still on the table for us. Awesome. I could even still wait a round on him here. We've got some defenses going right now. Seems a bit early for that, but we're not going to worry about that too much. A good pick here with Sony Michel. I was kind of wondering at what time, if any, did I want to go out and handcuff Darrell Henderson. But with 4 starting running backs on my team, 4 NFL starting running backs, not necessarily fantasy starters at all times on my team, I figured I could cut the group some slack. I had missed out on that crop of rookie running backs, so I could always pick a Ramondre Stevenson here. And there, of course, goes Russell Gage. Come on, man. It's disappointing. I would love to get Stevenson, but if Jokester tunes back in the draft here, he knows all my guys. He's a sniper. He'll come back and get me if I wait. No Russell Gage. Who do I want to pick? This is a really unfortunate situation. I could just double down, get that quarterback position squared away, and then I can have my choice of Joe Burrow or Kirk Cousins. I've got my QB 13 and my QB 15 on the same roster. Again, the drop-off at the quarterback spot isn't all that significant, so if there's a position I wanted to see that at, maybe it's that one. I do have a window of Marquez Callaway, Jacoby Myers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, some names I like here. Maybe I just reach up. I'm not a real confident Devontae Parker fan this year at all, to be honest. A crowded wide receiver room as well. T.Y. Hilton's hurt right now. He's going to miss some time. That news actually just came out right along with that J.K. Dobbins info. Nelson Aguilar's a nice field stretcher, but will it be him or Jacoby Myers? We don't really know. So I'm actually going to just take a shot here. And since this team in particular has Alvin Kamara, that's why I went Marquez Callaway over those other players. Not that you have to reach up and draft him at this spot at this point anyways, but we're fishing for upside. We've been talking about that for a couple rounds now, and I think that gives us the nice opportunity to do that. I will go ahead and take Kirk Cousins here in the 13th round. It's a fine time to do that. Again, stabilizing that position group and just making sure I'm not too weak at any one spot. You're not position filling, but you are looking to round out this roster. The thing I'm looking for is wide receiver upside, and I do love Marquez Callaway's upside without Michael Thomas on the field. Maybe I play Callaway for a few weeks. We'll see if he can actually separate against legitimate number 1 NFL corners. That's yet to be seen because his work was done in the preseason. What did he just have, a 104-yard game or something? I think I just saw. Yep, hauls in 104 yards, 2 touchdown passes. That's awesome. You love to see that. But until he shows me he can do it against the big boys, I'm not going to over-assess his value to this team. But it is something that's intriguing. It's worth a draft pick, a dart throw. Maybe he pans out. Maybe you play him for 3 weeks. This is where I was going with this here. And then maybe you hear that in 2 weeks, Adam Schefter tells you Michael Thomas will be back. So you say, okay, Marquez Callaway, let's hear your offers. And you start listening to your league mates, and you try and flip him for maybe a player who isn't performing as well right now, but his value is lower because of some down performances. Either it was a tough matchup, he was dealing with some sort of injuries, but then you get a guy who on the back end of the stretch of the season can help carry your team the distance. And something I like to do is you have to weigh your risk here, but in season we do a lot of trade analysis here on the channel. We do a lot of market watching and assessing the trade, just that, the trade market for fantasy football. And something key to watch is I spent a lot of time studying injuries, figuring out what hampers players, what's a bigger deal than other injuries. And when a player is expected to miss a couple games for something minor, if I like them, I'm going out, boom, make that trade. Get the guy who will help you in the back stretch of the season maximize your team's upside. Don't go trade for a guy whose injury is something hamstring, ankle. There's some things that are just really nagging, and even if you're on the field, you're not playing up to your fullest capabilities. Those are going to be injuries that will actually hurt you if you trade for those guys. But some more minor things, maybe it's something as simple as a wrist. A wrist can be problematic for a blocking tight end, but for something else, you can overcome it. It's just the difference in the awareness to know what exactly is going on and then going out and making moves. While some people might be scared, lower their value of a certain player, or maybe you get a guy on your team who you don't think very highly of, but has 2 easy matchups in a row, goes off and hits his ceiling. Now his stock has risen in the trading community, and other players are interested in acquiring his services for their teams. So a bunch of different ways to go about things. We'll get into all of that in the season. I make a couple of those videos every week, and they do pretty well. And we do a lot of advice in the comment section for those. It's some of my favorite stuff to do here on the channel. So definitely keep your eye out for that this season. I can't pass Jacoby Myers' floor right now. I'm going to really hope that Deandre Stevenson falls to me here, and then in the 16th and final round, I'll worry about that defense late. I think we've already kind of missed. You know what? Did the Broncos go yet? They did. My Dolphins might not be waiting there for me, but nearly every other team has picked a defense. So if someone really wants to take a second defense, be my guest. I'll take Deandre Stevenson, the second best true running back for this Pats offense now that Sony Michel's gone. I think he goes Damian Harris, Deandre Stevenson, and he's going to be a monster on the goal line if he gets that work. And then James Robinson's your third down passing back. So if something happens to Damian Harris, Deandre Stevenson becomes nearly a must-start player when you look at that offensive line. The usage of LeGarrette Blount, who is my comp for him, has had during his career as a Patriot. There's too much good stuff in that situation. So most teams have transitioned over to the auto draft now here with a lot of the rosters kind of filled out and completed here. We do still have a few teams left making draft choices, but most of these guys stuck around for the entirety of the video, so I thank you all very much for that. It was a good draft. I'm feeling confident in this team. I like how the lineup played out here. Let me know down below in the comment section what your thoughts are on today's video. We'll recap the team before we jump on out of here. All that's left is for me to draft a defense. We've addressed every other major fantasy situation and position. Got that tight end position squared away early on with Darren Waller there. The Dolphins are still hanging on. We'll see. There's still, 4 or 5 picks. I would be the 5th pick here on the board. I would take that Dolphins defense in a heartbeat. If you are looking for a good pass rush, ball hawking secondary, I see this literally every video. It's like clockwork here on the channel. The Broncos and the Dolphins have been the teams I'm drafting the most of this season. And if you're one of those guys who likes to play around with returning games as well, Jakeem Grant plays for the Dolphins, one of the best, arguably, punt returners and potentially sometimes kickoff returners as well. Explosion, takeaways, sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles, all of it. They've got it all. So as a later round defense, you don't have to invest in them as early as a Buccaneers or Rams. Heck, even Washington, Pittsburgh, the Bills are still going relatively early, but that's besides the point. A lot of good stuff to take from that Dolphins defense. For how good they were last year, I can't believe, the number 4 defense, I can't believe they haven't been used more or drafted more in fantasy leagues. And look at that. People love to see what happens here. If you're still watching this video, you're an absolute true, by the way. Thank you for sticking around through the course of today's draft and supporting the channel here. But people start to tune out towards the end of the videos. They don't watch the whole thing. So they know all my sleepers in the middle rounds that they want to draft. They know all the teams that I'm trying to snatch up and take advantage of at that spot. But then once the defenses come around, everyone's already clicked off this video and gone on to something else. So no one's hearing all the great things I have to say about the Dolphins, despite the fact that I say it probably every time I do a mock draft. So if you're still watching, you just got a leg up on the competition because you found this year's sleeper defense that's going to come out there and be a stud. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got them as the last defense. The last defense drafted to be a starting defense in this league is the Dolphins. And I will almost bet you, unless they lose a star player, they will finish ahead of the Browns, Colts, Pats, Bills, and Ravens at minimum. They'll be a top 6 fantasy defense this season. Just watch. I'm very, very faithful in my boys Xavier Howard, Brian Flores, and that defensive unit and coaching staff. So thank you all so much for watching today's video, you guys. Remember, one more time, go check out that draft guide if you're looking for help in your fantasy leagues this year. Drop any comments, questions, concerns down below. Today's draft: Joe Burrow, Alvin Kamara, David Montgomery, Tyler Lockett, Michael Thomas, Darren Waller, Darrell Henderson, Devontae Smith, that Dolphins defense, baby. Brandon Cooks, Zach Moss, Marvin Jones, Marquez Callaway, Kirk Cousins, Jacoby Myers, and Ramondre Stevenson. A wide array of picks, some players I haven't picked and shined a bunch of light on throughout this offseason. I think got their dues today, and I was able to talk about some more players that I'm very interested in at different spots on the board and should be valued highly in our fantasy leagues this season. So thank you all so much for watching one more time. Subscribe if you're new around here. Give today's video a like. Support the channel. Go check out any merchandise you're interested in here from the SFS brand. Any of that good stuff. The description is loaded with goodies if you want to go check out a bunch of the features here, social medias, all that good stuff, and all that fun info is down there. So I'll see you for tomorrow's video. We're not taking a break till the fantasy season gets started. All the way until it's over. I'll be here with you guys every step of the way and making sure you get things right this year. Win those titles, get that bragging rights. If there's cash in the line, put some money in your pockets. I'm here for you through the thick and the thin, through the injuries, through the ups, the downs, all that good stuff. So finally, I've said it about 4 times already, but thank you for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.